Hey, beautiful. It's the live book read. It is Wednesday, November 20th, 10:43 here on the East Coast. I'm Michelle. I will be reading from today's book, which is called No More Big Butts. Today, we're going to be reading from chapter 3 called Lions and Tigers and Bears Oh My. So grab your favorite beverage. I have mine right here, and let's get started. This is step 2. Overcome your gremlins of fear. Several big butts are formed because of the fears we have, whether real or imagined. These can be a fear of the future, fear of change, fear of looking stupid, or a myriad of other fears. Many people are desperate, frustrated, and frightened because they live with imaginary pictures of themselves and their view of the world, rather than realizing and accepting their true nature. At one time or another, fear is a constraint that everyone experiences in varying degrees. The paralyzing effect, which is produced by fear, causes millions of well meaning people to be reluctant to do anything new or to stretch beyond what they are used to doing. Despite how much pain and suffering these people are currently experiencing, and as much as they may be reluctant to admit it, they are comfortable with the status quo because the thought of the unknown or making a change is simply too much a risk for them. They settle for the life they know rather than the risk the unknown. At the forefront of several reasons why we feel we can't do something or we put it off for someday is the fear hiding inside us. I was fearful that my high school English teachers would be going through my book and highlighting my grammatical errors with that dreaded red pen. I had an unrealistic version or a vision that I wasn't good enough or smart enough to be an author. Nonetheless, this is one of the fears that so many people, especially women, have of not being good enough. Countless girls and women have this inner feeling of being inadequate, undeserving, and unworthy to live the lifestyle they secretly want. When you allow fear to hold you back from going beyond your comfort zone or from taking calculated risk, you give up your personal power and it causes you to put your dreams and goals on hold, sometimes indefinitely. Fear prevents you from becoming successful at things you want and attempt to do. If you permit fear to control you long enough, it can eventually erode your quality of life and keep you locked in your own personal prison. What many fail to realize is that fear is nothing more than a conditioned response. It is a natural reaction to frightening or unfamiliar situations, while fear is usually automatic. These are things you can do to overcome it. There are only two kinds of fears that psychologists claim we are born with: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. It can even be argued that these are simply reflexes. If that is the case, we can see that fear is a learned behavior, and anything you learn can be unlearned. I like to refer to fear as our gremlins. No one has ever seen a gremlin. However, they are portrayed as tiny troll like creatures. The term gremlin was first used by British airmen during World War II to refer to the constant problems with mechanical systems, primarily in aircraft. Despite the mechanics' best efforts in delivering an aircraft free of problems, glitches would continually arise. No one had ever caught a gremlin sabotaging any mechanical system, yet the mischief remained. Gremlins love to cause mayhem and madness in our lives as well. Experts will tell you that the majority of things you fear will never come to fruition. While this may be true intellectually, it certainly doesn't feel that way emotionally. Fear appears to have the power to prevent you from doing the things you know logically that you should be doing. If you scrutinize your fears when they arise, you may be able to overcome them by knowing they are not real. It's just your perception that is real. For example, you may have a fear of public speaking. Suppose your boss wants you to give a presentation at work. You may feel your reputation and livelihood are on the line. You may also fear getting fired or worry that your colleagues will lose respect for you if you don't do a good job. You may even be fearful that you'll appear to be a fool. Is anything in this scenario likely to happen? In most cases, the answer is no. Rather than worry about what might happen if you don't give a solid presentation, you could brainstorm ways to help improve your performance, such as being well prepared, practicing your delivery on friends and family members, or writing notes to yourself. If you're ready to overcome the gremlins of fears that stop you from living life on your terms, a recommendation is to do a thing or the things you fear the most. You must have faith. Believe with childlike wonder that what you set out to do will actually happen. Think back to the excitement of your birthday parties when you were a child. You know there were several presents for you, which is the faith part. The childlike wonder was imagining what was wrapped up in each package just for you. That's how you can use positive imagination rather than negative imagination to overcome fear. Force yourself to do the things you fear the most. To initiate the process of taming your fears, become aware of the two types of fears. The first kind is a normal fear, which contributes to self-preservation, and it's necessary for your survival. It keeps you safe and prevents you from impending and real danger. This fear preserves our lives and can serve us well. The second type of fear is abnormal fear, which you imagine with the worst possible scenario. Abnormal fear is what most people experience when they think of fear, and this is the fear they desire to overcome. It is based on your insecurities, self-doubt, limiting beliefs, and your ego. It causes you to think you are not good enough and not worthy of the things in life you would like to be, do, or have. It is necessary to realize that we will never be without fear. By staying in the present where fear does not live, you can build your fear-repelling muscles to help you overcome dread. Most people become acutely aware of fear or anxiety when they choose to grow and expand. In the book, A New Earth, author Eckhart Tolle delves into detailed insight about the ego. The ego's sole role is to protect you by any means necessary. The ego is committed to staying alive by maintaining the status quo, and its biggest fear is its own death or injury, which are represented by change. Surely the ego is trying to protect you from what it perceives as harm. Unfortunately, your ego knows you're intimate and realizes that it can protect you and prevent you from becoming fabulous through fear, and fear is all about your perception of future events. Can you see how this presents a huge conflict? Because you desire to expand and grow, the ego will use fear, its tool of choice, to stop you cold in your tracks. It will cause you to fantasize, but in reverse. You'll fantasize about the worst possible outcomes. By dwelling on the false visions dancing in your head, the ego becomes delighted. It wins and gets to pull the same old stunts over and over again until you say enough. Although your ego tries to control your growth, it shrinks as you rise to your greatness. On the other hand, because your ego is connected with your self-image, it is also able to build and develop self-confidence and to be able to handle whatever happens to you. This is the side of the ego that needs to be cultivated, while the unfounded fear needs to be understood if you are to reach your full potential. Another technique to beat down your fears is to take action despite those fears. It is called walking into the fear and staying in the present. Treat the present as the gift it really is. When you stay in the now or in the present moment, you gradually begin to overcome your abnormal fears. Fear can emerge when you revisit your past. You may worry about the consequences of your actions and how they may impact how you or it may experience fear by participating or anticipating future events. Most fears of the future involve imagining the worst happening regarding an upcoming event, and a helpful solution that you can start using right now is to stay in the present. It is worth repeating that fear can be overcome by living in the present moment and not worrying about past events or anticipating future ones. Don't give up control to fear and allow it to incarcerate you. Instead, make fear a friend that encourages you to step beyond your comfort zone and enjoy all the fabulous experiences waiting for you. What the caterpillar calls death, the butterfly calls life. However, most of us are frozen by fear because we do all we can to avoid change in our lives. We create comfort zones which offer a protective cocoon, but it also inhibits us from trying new things. The fear of trying new things paralyzes us because we are gravely afraid of failing. On the surface, we think we desire change and new experiences, but drill deeper, and the truth that surfaces is we like things just the way they are. Even if our circumstances are less than ideal, we may be comfortable with the way things are because, shudder, we don't know what the future has in store for us. Most people would rather accept things the way they are right now, even if they don't like them, than risk embarking on new, unknown experiences. How often do you embrace the opportunities that show up in your life? Always, occasionally, or never? A cause for the latter is that opportunity usually does not show up in a beautifully boxed package with a bow on it. Opportunity can be considered the greatest chameleon because it usually comes disguised as bad luck, misfortune, or a tough break. In the midst of your personal drama and chaos lies the opportunity for your newly redesigned lifestyle. In hindsight, bad luck and chaos can cause us to grow by moving us out of our comfort zone. Growth is what makes you able to take advantage of the opportunities which are right under your nose, and you may not see them for what they really are. The very fact that you are fearful to embrace these opportunities and the colossal fear of playing big in your life is what causes countless individuals to live a life of quiet desperation. There are ever-present big buts we use as crutches due to our need for security, and in our society, we crave the constant need for security so much that it can act as a personal prison. However, in order to escape an invisible prison, you must first acknowledge that you are in one. It's time to stop being your own worst enemy. The need to feel secure is a valid concern. It's one of the top needs we have as human beings. Security may present itself in the form of a job, a family, or even that feeling that intimately loving someone brings. Because our need for security, we become reluctant to do the things that we know we should do to live by design and not by default. Perhaps we don't want to rock the boat. What expense has security charged you for the need to feel secure? I encourage you to shake things up a bit. When I first began working in the airline industry, one of the things drilled into our heads was that change is constant. What was in effect yesterday could be out of date today. I've embraced that concept and still do to this day. Everything changes. What you have today, you may not have tomorrow. Life can change for you in a heartbeat. You may not like it, but it's a fact. Trying to fight change will set you up for ongoing frustration. One of your early resistance to change was when it was the first time for you to attend school. Unless your parents thoroughly prepared you for the first day of kindergarten, you probably cried a river of tears because you were fearful of the unknown. You didn't want to leave your carefree days of being at home and watching your favorite show at the time. Captain Kangaroo was my favorite. I love Bunny Rabbit and Mr. Moose for those ping pong balls always dropping from the ceiling. Well, it didn't get any better. When you graduated from grade school to high school, you may have been excited, but it may have been stressful. We all long for things to continue just the way they are at some point in our lives. You may have heard the saying, the good old days. When you think back, not all of them were good. You're just pining for the familiar, and that's the reason why we dislike change so much. It causes us to stretch. Again, resistance to change usually is because of fear. That's an entire generation of people who are still intimidated by computer and mobile technology. They use the big buts that it's not part of how they were raised, or it's just too complicated to learn at their age. However, if they were to acknowledge their fear and take the necessary steps to overcome it, I truly believe they would enjoy a whole new world that would open up to them. This is a classic example of turning fear into triumph. You may even realize that change can be good if you can get over the initial fear. This is a case of overcoming fear and how it can be a change for the better. One fear I had was having vision correction surgery. I had worn glasses since the fourth grade, and for as long as I can remember, I disliked them. My childhood pictures rarely showed me with glasses on because I would make a conscious effort to remove them. When I got my first part-time job in high school, my first purchase was contact lenses. I enjoyed the freedom from wearing glasses and thoroughly enjoyed wearing contact lenses. Despite the fact that I had worn lenses for over 20 years, I began having problems with the fit and vision. Slowly, I began wearing my glasses again, but out of vanity, I was dissatisfied with my appearance. At that point, I had taken an interest in vision correction surgery. There were breakthroughs because I had come to dislike the whole contact lens eyeglass regime. After I summoned up courage and weighed pain against pleasure, I decided to do it as a birthday gift to myself. I can't believe I waited so long. After a lifetime of poor vision, I consider it a miracle to be able to see without using glasses or contact lenses. You can never avoid risk, and that is something most people are constantly trying to do. There will always be risk. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable. Once you stretch to new horizons, the new uncomfortable zone somehow magically becomes comfortable. Let's look at some of the games we play with ourselves. Think about the virtually unlimited answers you can use to fill in the blank. When blank happens, I'll be able to blank. Or if blank occurs, then I'll still be able to blank. Have you ever found yourself playing this game? It's basically a game of procrastination and distraction that stops you from getting what you really want. There will always be things that happen to you that are out of your control, and things that you cause to happen that are within your control. The late life strategist Jim Rohn often said, "You can't control the wind, but you can control your sails." That is a great quote to keep in mind in overcoming your gremlins of fear. We all have things that happen to us that are totally beyond our control. Some of these fears are so traumatic that we may need professional assistance to overcome them. But there are several techniques from this chapter we can use on our own to overcome fear. If we get totally honest, it appears at the root of most fear is a lack of self-confidence. Self-confidence occurs when you feel good about yourself and feel you are able to handle what life throws your way. Therefore, a major way to overcome your gremlins of fear is to develop or strengthen your self-confidence to allow you to handle whatever happens to you. As I mentioned in the previous chapter, nothing I say is new. Some of these techniques were inspired from the book Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. Most fears that you feel when you want to go after a desired goal involve not feeling good about yourself and your skills and or abilities. You may have the feeling that you are not in control of what may happen, but you can't handle everything life dishes out. So, here's a question. What would you do if you felt you could handle anything that happened to you? Would you become unstoppable? You can definitely build up your self-confidence to help you become unstoppable in overcoming fear. A major contributor of fear is negative expectations. Do you usually find yourself expecting the worst in just about every situation? Do you worry obsessively about what could go wrong rather than focusing on your strengths and capabilities? If you make a conscious effort to expect the best, to see the positive side of each situation, and to keep reminding yourself that you can handle whatever comes your way, you'll find yourself with much less reason to be fearful. Even if feelings of fear do manage to creep into your consciousness, you'll still be able to keep them in perspective and balance them against an underlying sense of confidence. If you weigh the pros and cons in any situation, you may decide that the possibility of negative consequences is minimal. So there's nothing to stop you from accepting the fear and taking action in spite of it. The point is not to become reckless with your decision making about things you perceive as fearful, but rather to empower yourself to realize that you do not have to let fear control your life. You can also overcome your gremlins of fear by working on raising your self-esteem. We give others respect, love, and consideration. How often do you give yourself what is due? How you value yourself is based on how high your self-esteem is. A healthy dose of self-esteem leads to a life of independence, happiness, flexibility, and the ability to adapt easily to change. On the other hand, maintaining unhealthy or low self-esteem leads to irrational thoughts, unhappiness, fear of change, defensiveness, and a negative outlook on life in general. How you see yourself has a lot to do with how others perceive you. If you are happy, smiling, and full of confidence and optimism, then others see you as someone they want to be around. If you respect yourself and portray this way of being, then others will respect you too. After all, how can you ask for respect from others if you don't respect yourself? If you have high self-esteem, you tend to be secure about who you are and have confidence in your abilities. You allow yourself to show your true feelings to others, and you are able to recognize and take pride in yourself for your achievements in life. Here are a few techniques by which you can raise your self-esteem. Make an honest list of all things you do well and refer to it often. Do not take other people's criticism to heart. Instead, listen to what they're saying and learn from it. Consider carving time out for yourself every day. Do something daily that you enjoy, such as taking a walk or soaking in a bubble bath. Do not deprive yourself of something you enjoy because you feel guilty for indulging yourself. If you know you shouldn't be doing it, do it anyway and forgive yourself. Most of us entertain an element of doubt in our minds whenever we try something new. In fact, almost everyone is in some way bogged down by doubt of some kind. Suppose you want to start a business or learn to play the piano. Are you absolutely certain that you will succeed? There is always a little fear, uncertainty, or doubt in the beginning when you try new things. Despite your doubts and insecurities, you must not permit fear to keep you from reaching your goals and desires. You must be prepared to risk failure. Therefore, dive right into whatever it is you want to do. Act as if you are a courageous person. Take 100% responsibility and analyze all of the possible consequences of your situation and embrace the outcome. In other words, assess the risk and then do it. One secret to conquering doubt and fear is having the courage to walk into the thing you fear the most so you can defeat it. Belief in oneself is the enemy of doubt and fear. Learn to think positively and believe in your ability to be successful. Remember, you will succeed if you think you will, and you will fail if you allow yourself to think that way. Your thoughts become self-fulfilling prophecies, so it's critical that you stop thinking negatively. Likewise, never pay heed to the people who discourage you, who revel in planting doubts in you, and who are actually wolves in sheep's clothing. Instead, surround yourself with those people whose thoughts and attitudes are positive. Who's down with OPP? Okay, I'm dating myself here. This was a rap song by a group called Naughty by Nature, who had a hit song called OPP, Other People's Property. However, I'm going to refer to OPP as our pain and pleasure. It's the need to move away from what we don't want, which is pain, and the need to move toward what we all want, which is pleasure. The majority of people operate from a pain-pleasure perspective. I believe most people will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. Listen to that last sentence again, this time slowly. I believe most people will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. When you get a full grasp on that sentence, it becomes highly understandable why your big butts are holding you back. Let's use the example of marriage with a pain and pleasure perspective. My husband Sam and I have been happily married. If we were to co-author a book called How to Have a Happy and Fulfilling Marriage, I'm sure there would be some takers. It addresses the pleasure of cultivating and maintaining a happy marriage. Now, if we were to write a book called What Your Spouse is Secretly Doing Behind Your Back, chances are this book would attract more attention because it brings out the pain of thinking that your spouse may be cheating on you. It's the pain of not knowing what's going on. People will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. That's why books on getting your teen off drugs will be more popular than raising happy, well-adjusted teenagers. People usually do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. It's just human nature. Another example would be when a 50-year-old woman wants to go to law school and become a lawyer, gain pleasure. She thinks she's too old and won't be able to keep up with the younger students. Avoid pain. What path is she more likely to take? Remember, we'll do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. Therefore, the path of least resistance will be not to go to law school. Now, let's turn it around. She's still 50. How much more painful will it be if she's a 70-year-old and then realizes that she could have been an attorney by 53 and enjoy about 10 years or more of practicing law? What is more painful now? I think the pain of not realizing a lifelong dream stirs up more pain. Again, this is how the ego uses fear to control us. Fear can serve to motivate us by using pain and pleasure. When you realize that everything you do is either to avoid pain or to gain pleasure, you'll start to recognize just how powerful a motivator fear can be. I fondly remember a family vacation or family reunion over a decade ago at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia. Sam, several cousins, and I decided to tame the Big Bad Wolf roller coaster. As we waited on the platform, I could see the look on everyone's faces. Just the anticipation made us all a bit fearful. The irony is that we voluntarily wanted to go on the ride. When our turn came, our group climbed up the roller coaster cars, but I wanted to do something to break the anxiety we were all feeling. As the ringleader of the group, I decided to lighten the mood and began singing at the top of my lungs, "Who's afraid of the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf? Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Na, 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 na." Now, we had a willing group of fellow coaster riders who joined in on the song, and we had a blast as we zipped and turned upside down throughout the wild ride. We hooted and hollered with applause, and as the train rolled onto the platform at the end of the ride, the entire group finished the song perfectly in sync. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? The big bad wolf, the big bad wolf. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Na 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 na. Now, if only all fears were as easy to whip as using a simple children's song, we might all be happier. Anticipating the outcome is another big factor when it comes to managing fear. Mark Twain, a celebrated American author who once lived right here in my hometown of Hartford, Connecticut, commented, "Some of the worst things in my life never happened." His fears were all in his mind. The worst things he envisioned never happened. Instead of anticipating pain, anticipate pleasure. Now remember that no matter what happens, you have to act courageous despite being fearful. Acknowledge it, accept it, and push through. Remarkably, the late Michael Jackson was said to have one of the biggest cases of stage fright. Imagine that. The top entertainer of the century had to push through his fears every time he performed. And once you've come face to face with the thing that once made you deathly afraid, you'll realize you no longer want to go back to the way things were, and you will embrace other things to conquer. Keep in mind that although fears may seem real, they really are not. Once you grasp this concept, fear loses much of the power it has over you. It can harm you or it can't harm you. And except in truly life-threatening situations, you can choose to ignore it and simply move forward. Accept that you will always have fear, just as everyone on the planet does. Trust in yourself that you can handle whatever comes your way. Take that, you gremlins of fears. Thanks for joining me. I see the light has shifted in this live book read, No More Big Butts. The window is right here, but again, thanks for joining me. If you want to get your copy, head on over to Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below. And I got over my fear of doing a live. This is my very first live, so I'm really excited for that. And I took my own advice. So again, look forward to seeing you next time. Smooches.